Dear class, I welcome you to this lecture, which is called the Institutional Framework for Agroecology, and it's a lecture that we offer at Mount Elizabeth University for the course of Master of Agroecology. And my name is Rogers Mutievere. I'm from Agricultural Economics Department in the Faculty of Agriculture. I will take you through a number of things, but maybe before we reach there, I would like you to give me a hint on what you expect. Each one of you can already look at what you expect in terms of content. Maybe you expect to learn engineering or maybe what. But remember, we are looking at the institutional framework, so try to jot down your expectations regarding the institutional framework. But also, you could also highlight how you expect the assessment and evaluation to be done. Maybe do you expect to do a group activity, or maybe go and meet an institution, assess it. In which way do you expect that we should be able to evaluate this course? And of course, what else do you expect in terms of the conduct during the lecture? What should we not have and what should we have? What should the instructor, that's me now, how would I behave? What's expected of you and what is expected of Mount University. So take time already, think and write down about the things, then you'll create something and be able to see them in a short while. We can do this in a very short time, and then you will have to submit your expectations in a paper. So briefly, going to, as you take time to write about that, I'm going to take you through the main topics of this module. And this module mainly has 8 areas, where mainly we start with the introduction to the module. We shall give a highlight of what the institutional framework for agroecology is about. Then we shall eventually link it up right away with the general introduction to agroecology and the institutional framework. Of course, eventually we know that there are several institutions which are governed in a certain country, which would be very key for the spearheading of agroecology practice among the farming communities. But at the same time, these institutions are either supported or not supported by the current policies. And therefore, we have also a full topic which is going to discuss about the policies, take us through the policy formulation, and which policies are good for agroecology. We look at the strengths and weaknesses of these policies, and then we highlight a few key policies which are majorly concerning the implementation of agroecology practice. And we shall, of course, eventually try and move on to the institutional platforms. We know that agroecology itself has several platforms that either debate, to promote, or undermine the practice. Of course, by the platform we are talking about certain institutions that have created a debate or a discussion. How do they maybe spearhead the practice, or how do they maybe plan to develop the practice or undermine the practice? So we shall look at these platforms, which are key in the framework of agroecology implementation. Then we shall transit to the marketing systems for agroecology. The marketing systems and discourses, mainly, these are concerned with how can we improve the marketing. Because all of us know that we have a problem. This agroecology is mostly left to the smallholder farmers. They practice, they invest in a lot of effort, a lot of knowledge, but at the end, they do not get very clear market. Or when they go to market, the agroecology product, which has been very expensive to grow without the chemicals, without going into the conventional practices, when they take the product to the market, they compete with those who have grown their crops without following the agroecology principles. So it tells us somehow that agroecology needs certain specialized marketing system, because remember, it is very expensive somehow to have this agroecology. You are not using chemicals. The other person is going to have the tomatoes, and then he sprays them with the chemicals, and then he produces very big tomatoes. Some of them are genetically modified. I think all of you have heard about this. And then when you appear in the market, your tomatoes, which are grown following the natural practices, are maybe smaller in size. But of course, we know that from a health perspective, they are healthy. But the person is mostly attracted by what they see right away in their face. So it means that we are going to compete for this market. And the person with the biggest product will, of course, will eventually sell first. Now, what do? Then we need to harmonize, to put a better structure, and then we have a certain grading system. We say, okay, this is an agricultural product, and then we have certain customers, the product branded very well for this customer to be able to identify that this product is for agroecology and this one is from the conventional agriculture. And of course, at the same time, we talk about the languages which we use here, the discourses. Discourse about the language that is used in agroecology. Some people, of course, the language we speak will either market our product or the market, if I may use that term. For example, with an example, someone was selling a beer at the airport, and there was a foreign visitor who comes to Uganda and doesn't know the beers, and this person selling says, here we have our local beer. And then this white man says, no, don't give me the local thing. Because for them, they thought maybe the local beer, you're talking about this Mwenge, Toronto, the Baganda call it Mwenge Rugere. And in that case, the person said, no. Now, you already know that by using the word local itself has already taken the buyer away from you. So the discourse or the language or the discussion that we generate around agroecology either will promote it or undermine it. We shall also look at that. Then in the sixth topic, we shall look at the certification and standardization or standards for agroecology. Because I say that now if you have to improve the marketing of agroecology, then we need to award certificates for farmers who have grown their crops or raise their animals following agroecology practices. Then you can give them certification. You should be able to certify them so that maybe they can easily be able to identify them, and then they are able to access better market. So and of course, certification itself is given following the certain standards that you have developed or have followed. Therefore, certification and standardization work hand in hand, and all these are aimed at promoting or improving the marketing of agroecology. So certification is one aspect that we could look at if we really need to improve the marketing of agroecology. Now, having looked at that, of course, we shall transit to topic 7. We look at the cross-cutting issues, the contemporary cross-cutting issues in the institutional framework. And in this, we know there are a lot of debates across the globe to do with the gender issues within agroecology, the biotechnology. Of course, many of you are already knowing. We have a contentious discussion on genetically modified organisms, what we call the genetic engineering. And of course, recently we have another new aspect called the artificial intelligence. Of course, we see that artificial intelligence is coming in, but eventually it's going to affect the labor productivity and other issues of agroecology. So in that case, it means that we need to strictly plan for how to use artificial intelligence in making sure that the agroecology is promoted and not undermined. Then eventually we shall give the conclusions. Now, just to give you a short overview of the introduction of what this course covers, we see that this course introduces the student to institutional framework for agroecology, and later on it also acquaints the student with the roles of different stakeholders and the policy institutions and platforms which advocate for agroecology. Mainly the objective is to look at equipping students with knowledge and of concepts and perspectives of policy framing related to agroecology. That's AE. Then it also aims at introducing the student to policies, laws, regulation, and standards related to certification and labeling. And then also, finally, we look at equipping the learners with the skills to participate in community-based policies or policy making that is in agroecology. Now, having learned this course, what do we expect of the learner? The learner should be able to explain some policies related to agroecology and also distinguish different laws, standards, regulations, and certification schemes, and also explain the steps involved in the community policy related to agroecology. So mainly that's the course outline that we're going to look at, and of course, like in your expectations, and you have the right to add on this course content. Like I already told you at the beginning, you can see what is missing that could include in this, or maybe what I've given, what you think that's not well framed, but we can put it like this. We still have a chance to change and then somehow try to tailor this course to your needs as the learners. Of course, you come from different organizations, you have different expectations, and you already think of the institutional framework in some way. So you still have a chance to suggest some ways and then be able to tell us what you think we can do. Now, let us just give the general introduction. This is now, we call it the second topic, and within the general introduction, we look at what institutional framework is about and what are the key elements of agroecology, and then finally we shall say why institutional framework is necessary. Why do we need the institutions to come together to form a skeleton, to form a framework? This is what we're going to do to see in the next 2 to 3 or 4 minutes. Now, what is an institutional framework? I know all of you have different definitions, but of course, before we introduce this institutional framework, it is important to define agroecology itself. Most of you have different views of what agroecology is, and if I may ask you also to write down, maybe before you see the slides, what's there, what is the term agroecology, what does it envisage? To envisage means that what are the key elements that we see in agroecology? What should we not miss in agroecology? So the term agroecology, briefly, is about the application of ecological understanding and principles in the planning and designing of a sustainable agroecology system. This is, of course, according to CDC. Several of you will have different, or you have already defined it in other course units. Foundations of agroecology have somehow maybe defined this, but it's not having a very fixed definition. These definitions sometimes vary, and you can be able to harmonize. But of course, there are key elements that we're going to see in the next slides, the elements that we should not miss. And this is what we see here. There are certain key elements of agroecology that should be addressed in the definition. For example, agroecology is about diversity. We don't need you to go on and keep chicken in a pure stand system or grow coffee alone. So agroecology envisages diversity. You have to have an integration of so many things. Then another component we have is the synergies. There should be synergies. There should be a connection of these components of the farm. The chicken dropping should be able to support the banana plantation. The banana plantation, maybe the multi-speak there should be able to be used in the coffee plantation. And maybe also within the coffee plantation, maybe you plant some grass strips which you harvest and get the animals. So that's the synergy. It should be kind of self-supporting. Another element that is key in agroecology, the definition of agroecology, is that efficiency. We should look at the efficient utilization of resources. Like I told you, I'm an economist. So mainly we look at the scarcity of resources. So what we have, we must be able to efficiently utilize them and be able to support the system. So in other words, it's not enough for you to say, I'm supporting the environment by doing agroecology. It should be related to the cost-benefit analysis. So whoever is planning to go and start an agroecology enterprise, think about how is it cost-effective? So we are not only going to look at the science, but we will also look at the economics. Then another component we have here is the resilience. The resilience means that if there was a drought, if there was a landslide or any big environmental hazard that is affecting your farm should be able to come back again, come back quickly. If there was a wind or a storm affecting your crop, you should be able to come again and then you'll be able to continue. That's the resilience. Then the second is to do with the utilization. That whatever, we don't have to have any waste from our farm. Whatever, for example, from the peelings, we can make some peelings of cassava. Some people make some chicken feeds. So you grind inside. We don't have to lose any small piece from our farm. And of course also, Another element here, we look at the co-creation and sharing of knowledge. This is a kind of a social science aspect. We need always, as agroecologists, to keep creating knowledge within using the indigenous practices, and then we should be able to share this knowledge. And also, we look at the social and human values. So an agroecology farm should be able to respect the gender, respect the workers' rights, should be able to integrate even the disabled people should be there, and therefore this farm should not be kind of segregative in a way, but should be able to integrate everyone, irrespective of gender, age, sex. There should be some work also given to the small children. Of course, we're not promoting child labor, but we should have a way of integrating all these people, all these personalities within the farm. Then we should also respect culture and food traditions, because we need to grow food that is respective. If you know that within agroecology, we also have to think about the Muslims. If they're not eating pork, they should also be catered for within this system. If we have agriculture, which means there should be certain meat that they can also be able to eat. And we should, whenever we prepare meat, we should also not prepare food in some kind of funny way which is going to dispel some other consumers, but everyone should be able to feel happy within our farm. Then should follow the responsible governance, so the administration of agroecology farm should really be well governed and respecting everyone's rights. And lastly, we look at the circular and solidarity economy. Somehow it's related to the recycling. We should say that agroecology itself is not about not using chemicals, if I may say, but if you are planning to use the chemicals, there should be a certain way how you're going to collect these chemicals within the systems themselves. Maybe if you spray, but at the same time you have a certain way of managing or making sure that the chemicals do not get into water to contaminate it, maybe it's somehow recycled, and eventually there should be a reconnection. But this one, of course, from the farm, it also goes to the value chain, the whole value chain. When we talk about the circular economy, we're looking at how you produce this product from the farm, how it goes to the transporter, how it goes to until it reaches the final consumer. So meaning that does your product remain agroecological along the whole value chain? So that's what and then until maybe you get the inputs back. So the supply of inputs and the supply of the product up the consumer, that is what we're calling the circular economy, should be able to remain agroecological at the end. So in short, that's what you can see. I can give a short background about agroecology and the institutional framework, and this is what you're going to see in our topic, in our next topic. So I hope you have been able to see what we expect to do in this course and what we shall be able to learn in the coming course and the coming topics. I meet you again next time. Thanks so much.